Hi there, we'll get started in just a minute. We'll get started in just a minute. All right, thank you so much for joining us today to discuss how developers are extracting value from Foursquare's Places API. My name is Ariel and I lead B2B marketing here at Foursquare. We're pleased to have you with us here today with some of the winners of our recent Places API Hackathon. A quick recap of the hackathon before we dive in. This fall, over 250 developers registered for our competition on a platform called DevPost, and they were tasked to build or update a software application to create engaging geocontextual experiences over the course of 6 weeks using our Places API. Projects were evaluated by a panel of expert judges, including our SVP of Engineering, Ankit Patel, our SVP of Marketing, Michelle Morelli, our Senior Director of Engineering, Shan He, and Gina Lofton, the CTO of Microsoft and a member of Foursquare's board. Projects were judged based on 5 criteria: their originality, utility, business value, technological implementation, and usability. The top 3 winners were awarded a cash prize as well as free API credits to continue to build. The winning projects showcase the possibilities that developers can unlock with our Places API. And I'm so excited to be joined here today by some of the winners to talk more about their projects. So to kick it off, I'd love it if you could introduce yourselves and tell us briefly about your project. Let's start with Jeffrey from the MyWaves project.
Great. Well, first of all, thank you to the Foursquare team for taking the time to host the hackathon and this webinar after the fact. It's been a great experience. So I'm Jeff. My app was MyWaves, and the mission behind MyWaves is connecting customers with their local restaurants, businesses, and stores through musical experiences. So there's 4 main features to MyWaves. The first one gives businesses analytics on how many people check into the store and how much money is spent within the 3 minutes after a song is played, so they can see how much customers actually like the songs they're playing. The second feature allows customers to manually or automatically request songs at their favorite businesses. And the third feature is a map that shows them all the music playing at various locations around them. And the fourth feature is the Music Map API, which allows third-party developers to query the data from the music map and see all the music playing around them.
Amazing. Thank you, Jeffrey. We were really impressed by your project. Next, let's jump over to Ken and Nick. Ken, maybe you could introduce yourselves first.
Hi, thank you for having me over. I am a recent graduate of Full Stack Academy's Web Dev Bootcamp. I have a degree in computer programming and information systems. Right now, I'm just working on trying to get my first software development job, and I figured joining this hackathon was a way to just prove my skill set. I have OmniGrub. We developed that, me and Nicholas. It is a small extension that runs with very little user interaction. The moment you go on a restaurant's page on a food ordering platform, The extension pulls the ratings from Foursquare, Yelp, and formerly Google, allowing you to make a more educated choice when determining where you want to eat or order from. That's OmniGrub in a nutshell.
Great. Nicholas, would you like to introduce yourself as well?
Of course. Hi, everyone. My name is Nicholas. You can call me Nick, Nico, whatever. I currently work at Societe Generale in investment banking, and I did this course with Kenneth part-time called Full Stack Academy, which is how I got into programming. And since then, I'm looking forward to probably moving into software development at some point in the future. And yeah, I mean, it was a real pleasure working on this with Kenneth. We've had a lot of problems along the way that, I think that's the best part about building stuff, is running into a problem and then solving it. So it really is, it's a feeling like no other. So that's all I have right now for that.
Yeah, I'm excited to dive into that in more detail with you. Let's dig a little bit more into sort of what inspired you to join this competition. Maybe we can start with the OmniGrub team and sort of what motivated them to get involved.
All right, so I decided to join the hackathon after Full Stack Academy's completion. Figured this is a good way to self-study, at the same time have a public forum to display what I can do, and just something to challenge myself on a time basis. You can always go on to lessons and whatnot and figure those out, but having a project with a deadline with competitors, it's definitely a motivating factor. That's it for me.
Yeah, great. And then I believe Kenneth worked with Nicholas as a team. What about Jeffrey? What motivated you to join?
Yeah, so I'd actually created MyWaves prior to the hackathon at a previous hackathon about a month before. But at that point, it was just a really basic project that really just had one feature, which was manually requesting songs. And I like to look at hackathons as a way to kind of brainstorm new features I can add. So I was scrolling through DevPost and I saw the Foursquare hackathon. And I'd heard of Foursquare before, but I didn't know that much about the hackathon. And the more I read about it and everything it could do with location intelligence, the more I was realizing it was a perfect fit for a lot of the things that I wanted to do. So yeah, after that, then I decided to join and give it a go.
Amazing. I'd love to hear more about what inspired you to create your project in the first place. So was it a personal pain point, or what was sort of the motivation and inspiration, if you will? Let's start again with the OmniGrub team with Kenneth to start.
Yeah, so OmniGrub was inspired from the pandemic when everyone was ordering food, or yeah, everyone's ordering food from, say, Grubhub, DoorDash, Yelp ordering. But what we discovered was a lot of these food ordering platforms often had highly elevated review ratings. And if you look up at the same restaurants on, say, Google or Yelp, some of these restaurants had much lower ratings. And I found myself constantly checking on DoorDash, Grubhub, getting their ratings, checking it on Google, getting their ratings. And after living in a city where there's thousands of restaurants around us, the decision making takes a bit of time before you actually order food. And I just wanted to build something simple that, you get all the ratings in one go. You can have a more educated decision in less time. I also wanted something that was less committal. I didn't want to redirect a user to a different website or have a user install full-fledged software. An extension is definitely a small commitment. You just hit extension. You don't even have to restart the browser, and you'll have your information right there and there.
I love it, making it easy for the user. Nicholas, can you share sort of what made you want to join Kenneth in working on this project and how that came together?
Yeah, of course. It's actually kind of a funny story. The first day we were all meeting, we were a group of 4, and we were all trying to come up with ideas. And Ken said, I can't come up with any ideas. I don't know, guys, I'm just not good at this. The next day we all came together and he had 5 fully fleshed out ideas with like diagrams and stuff. And so I was just, pretty amazed at that point. But as soon as I saw OmniGrub, I was like, that is something that is useful and viable, and that's what I'm interested in building, something that's actually maybe used by people compared to, just something that exists.
Yeah, I love it. I'm so glad you guys were able to come together on this one. Jeffrey, what about you? What motivated you to create MyWaves?
Yeah, so just as I was shopping or eating at restaurants, I started to realize how much the background music would affect my mood. So when it was music I really liked, I really wanted to stay at the restaurant longer, stay at the store longer, enjoy my time. But when it was music I didn't really vibe with, I just kind of wanted to leave and go somewhere else. And I'd imagine that feeling's like much more heightened for employees that are there all day. So I came up with the idea of kind of making a real-time feedback loop between the business's music and the people actually listening to the music, so that instead of people just having to listen to like predefined playlists, which is what most stores use, they could listen to music they actually want to hear. And then the cool thing was all the other ideas just built on top of that. So as soon as I realized that people could request songs, then I realized, well, now that there's all this data about the music that different people are playing at different restaurants and stores, why not allow people to actually use that information? Like Kenneth was saying, when you're looking for a restaurant to go to, there's so many restaurants. What's like a defining factor? It might be important to know if the restaurant plays, slow, quiet jazz music versus high up tempo pop music, because depending on the mood you're in, that might be for you or not. So yeah, that's how I came up with the idea.
I love that. I definitely worked at a clothing boutique in college where the same 5 songs would play over and over again. And I think it would have been a great opportunity to get to sort of have a say in that and to help show our prospective customers what the vibe was. So that's really useful. You talked earlier about running into problems. So I'd love to dig a little further into that. And what were some of the challenges that you faced and how did you overcome them in the process of developing your apps? I think Nick mentioned one of these that would be good to start with.
Yeah, I mean, we ran into a bunch of problems, and the I think the first one, which was so stupid, that I ran into for a while, was just how to render it on the page, because Foursquare, I mean, DoorDash has just a ton of different classes and stuff, and I spent like a day just trying to find the right thing that was like consistent across all pages, and it took me a day, but I realized it was just the header. The header is something that's like part of every page, and when I figured that out, and then I saw it on the page, I mean, that moment is just so it's like liberating. It's incredible, something so simple. We ran into another problem somewhat more recently. I don't know, Ken, if you want to talk a bit about it. I mean, that was stressful, to say the least.
Yes, Nick, thank you. Actually, Nick was the one that found the error. Another challenge we've had, and it's still an ongoing challenge, was keeping the extension working on these multiple websites. Right now, it works with DoorDash, and updates on DoorDash affects the performance of OmniGrove. So just recently, literally 3 hours ago, the location, the address of where these restaurants were on a completely different part of the DOM tree and the HTML elements. So just keeping up with the updates of each and every website that OmniGrub works on is just an ongoing challenge.
Yeah.
Another thing was increasing or getting accurate results from the API calls, especially if you're on DoorDash, you're on a McDonald's you're on a web page for McDonald's on, say, block A. At the beginning of OmniGrub, we were getting the results of a McDonald's from block B. It was a pretty prevalent issue when it came to multi-location restaurants, and that's something we improved on during the hackathon.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense that would be a challenge to try to differentiate, especially a common chain like that. Seems like something that would be common to run into with this type of work.
Yeah, especially in New York City where there's a McDonald's in like every other block, especially in
Yeah.
Times Square.
Important to distinguish them for sure.
Mhm.
Um, Jeffrey, what about you? Any challenges that you ran into?
Yeah, so the biggest challenge I ran into for me wasn't on the location side, it was on the music side and interacting with the music that the stores are playing. So when I went into it, I thought that stores used like Apple Music or Spotify to play their music, but most of them don't. They use other software that's like quote unquote licensed for commercial use. And unfortunately, a lot of these apps and software they don't have open APIs that I could use. But I found one really good one. It's called Soundtrack Your Brand, and they had an API I was able to use to do all the things you need to do to, request songs, add them to the queue, query what song is currently playing, that kind of stuff. But even with that, just because there's only so many stores that use this app and this API, they didn't have like a built-in like add to queue functionality in the API. So I had to kind of custom build it and do a sort of workaround. But the Soundtrack Your Brand team was great, and it ended up working in the end. And another problem, now that Kenneth and Nick brought up something recent, I went to the website this morning and it wasn't working, and I was like, shoot, why isn't it working? And I went to Heroku, which is the place that I use to host my data and my website. And turns out they had ended like the free plan for the database. But they're like, whatever, open a support ticket to like reactivate your database. So I was doing that this morning to reactivate the database. But I think Nick can kind of bring up a good point. Like even there's always like constant work to be being done just in terms of keeping things up to date with the platforms you're running on, which is really interesting.
Yeah, you might think that you have finished and tied a bow on it, and then you wake up and it's not working. So that's really interesting how you were both able to quickly pinpoint what was going on and work on solving it. But you are definitely a group of problem solvers here. I love it. What would you do with your projects if you had more time? I mean, 6 weeks feels like a long time, but it probably went by really quickly. So we'd love to hear maybe what you would have expanded upon or added if, time were unlimited. Jeff, maybe you can speak to that one first.
Yeah, sure. So the first thing that I would do if I had more time was enhance the automatic song requesting feature. So right now, the way that it works is you walk into a store and you click like check-in on Foursquare's Swarm app. And once you do that, then a few of your favorite songs from Spotify are automatically requested and the restaurant or store can start playing it. But what I think would be cool is if you didn't even have to pull out your phone, if it just happened automatically, your phone just senses what location you're at and your favorite music starts playing. So I actually reached out to Foursquare about this and met with them a couple of days after the hackathon in terms of the Pilgrim SDK, which is Foursquare's solution to this. And it was really cool because it literally solved the exact problem I was having, where this SDK can detect as soon as someone walks into a restaurant, as soon as they walk into a store, and it could start playing their favorite music. So I would definitely spend a lot of time on that in the hackathon if I had more time. And another thing I would do as well is with the music map that shows all the music playing, I would take advantage of the unfolded studio in terms of visualization, because I think that'd be really cool to see all across the country, all across the globe, all across your community, what music is playing where and at what time, and all those sorts of things. So yeah, those would be the two main things that I would do if I had more time.
Yeah, we love to hear that all the products, the Places API, could be used for your app in conjunction with some of our other offerings like Studio and Pilgrim. So I think encourage you to keep building there. And exciting always to see how those things come together to unlock even more engaging experiences. Nick and Kenneth, what about you? If you had more time for your project, what might you add or do?
Right. So one thing we would want to do if we had more time was just spreading OmniGrub support for other platforms. Right now, it only works on DoorDash, but we would love to have it work on, say, Yelp, Grubhub, even on Google's results. Just spreading it out. If we had even more time than that, we would also want some sort of mobile deployment. I don't have any experience with mobile development, but and I don't know if this is possible, but say OmniGrub as an overlay over the actual applications of, say, Grubhub or DoorDash, or maybe even its own like mobile application. Just something to spread the wings of OmniGrub further.
Yeah, and make it everywhere that users are so that they can have an easy experience finding good food. Love it.
Yeah.
All right. So what would you say are some of your takeaways from your experience or learnings that you had after participating in this hackathon? Maybe Nicholas could start.
My main takeaway would be sort of just to try, I guess. I know that going into this, we were kind of like, I don't know, there's a lot of people. I don't know if OmniGrub is good enough, to do well or even, get a place in this. And was like, why don't we just try? I was like, yeah, I mean, why not? and then we won, which was, for us, I mean, it was unbelievable. It was so great. We were really excited, obviously, and so I guess my takeaway would just be like, just try. And anything, you have nothing really to lose, especially when it comes to hackathons.
Absolutely. We were so excited to see you as one of the winners, and I know all of our judges were very impressed with the project. I think, it was very user-friendly and had a ton of utility, and so it made a lot of sense for this. Kenneth, what about you? Any takeaways or major learnings you'd share with the group?
Honestly, the one main takeaway is that programs break while you're sleeping, and you just have to be on top of your development. Waking up today, finding out that OmniGrub wasn't working until the day we just did. It just means that you just got to stay on top of your online applications, and just it's an ongoing challenge, and it's just something you have to be interested in continuously working on. Just like Jeffrey said, finding out that Heroku ended their free platform, that's just something that's part of the nature of development. Constant challenge, but it's a very interesting challenge. And that's it.
All right, Jeffrey, any final takeaways or learnings from your participation in the hackathon?
Yeah, I'd say my biggest takeaway was just the sheer number of like cool ways that location can be integrated into apps. So like for MyWaves, for me, as I said earlier, it was everything just kept building on each other. Like, oh, now that there's this feature, I could add this feature and this feature and this feature. And even just seeing all of the other hackathon projects like OmniGrub and all the other ones, and seeing the creative ways that they leveraged location was really inspiring, and like a good act of creativity to see how many different ways it could be used. And I think I'm really optimistic about the future of like location intelligence and location APIs being used on websites and apps, especially with some emerging technologies like augmented reality glasses. Like I could totally see a day where you could be wearing your augmented reality glasses, walking down, and you see a restaurant and you want to know what type of music they're playing, and you don't even have to pull out your phone. You can just see it like projected and say like, oh, it plays this type of music, this is how loud it is, etc. And same for OmniGrub. I could totally see a day where you just look at the restaurant and there's just all the reviews are right there. You don't even have to pull out your phone at all. So yeah, just really cool to see where this goes in the future.
Amazing. Well, we were incredibly impressed by each of your projects and all the projects that came out of this hackathon. In addition to the 3 winners, we named, I think, 8 honorary mentions in different categories, such as the best data visualization, the best data analytics, and you can check out all the different projects and see the demo videos on the DevPost website within the project gallery at the URL listed here. Foursquare's Places API really unlocks rich data, such as reviews, about over 100 million points of interest all around the world to help create these types of engaging geocontextual experiences. And the group here today joined over 125,000 developers around the world who are using our Places API to display points of interest on maps, surface rich content, recommend top places nearby, and so much more. You can join and sign up for a developer account within Foursquare's developer console, and everyone who signs up automatically gets free credits to start building before you have to spend any money at all. And so I encourage you all to test it out. We also have a great community that we've started on Discord that the hackathon participants were able to use to engage with one another and ask questions of our team throughout the competition. And that is something that lives on today with different channels for different product features and release notes and updates about other events. And so we definitely encourage everyone to join that as well and become part of the Foursquare community. We have time for a few questions from the audience if anyone would like to answer to add them in the chat box. We can take any questions folks have, but otherwise we can wrap it up. Any final takeaways or words of wisdom from the panelists that you'd like to share?
Use ChatGPT to code. It's awesome. Not that we used it for OmniGrub, but it would have helped, obviously.
Yeah, we were just discussing before the webinar started what a great tool it is for developers. So excited to see how that could play in here and what they would tell you to build with the Foursquare Places API. All right, well, we can wrap it up. Thank you all so much for your time today, and thank you to our panelists for sharing more about their experiences and for all of their great work. Please feel free to visit us at location.foursquare.com to learn more, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Ariel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.